Happy Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day. Uh, can't really lie, I'm not very big on Valentine's Day. Never been in the past. A lot of my memories around Valentine's Day, in terms of getting gifts and all that, for whoever I was with, because since since my early adulthood, I've been far more about long-term relationships. So I was often with someone when the Valentine's Day hit. So with that said, yeah, I mean, it was good sometimes, I guess, but usually Valentine's Day seemed more like an obligation to me, but that's just the reality of consumerism, commercialism, companies getting their money and all that. But it's Valentine's Day today, so my intention is not to shit on Valentine's Day, but actually to pose the question that if women ruled the world, would everything be much, much better? I say yes. I say yes. And actually, if you're a fair-minded person, this is obvious. Now, let me preface it with, there are obviously reasons why men exist as well. So that's not how it's supposed to be. And for many reasons I may not even be able to articulate, it's not how it can be. But at least based on appearances, right before us, or at least based on how women tend to be, I think it is fair to say that if women ruled the world, obviously as men are still in it, but if women ruled the world, we're talking about. We're not saying eliminate men, even though there's a Stephen King book that has to do with that concept, the idea that there's no men and just women left in the world. I can't remember the name of it, but I read the audiobook some years ago. But anyway, if women ruled the world, just hear me out on this, if women ruled the world, there'd be less ego. As a whole, there would be less ego. And if there's less of an ego in the average human, then I think that means there'd be less lying, less deceit, less manipulation, less vindictiveness, or to put it another way, less need of vengeance, less selfishness, less theft, less cases of armed robbery, less DUIs, less fatalities caused by DUIs, far less cases of assault, far less cases of rape, far fewer murders, far less war, less genocide, less hungry or starving children, less abandoned children, less police killing suspects, less suspects killing police, less illegal guns on the street, and less guns in the country as a whole. This would result in less mass shootings, which means less school shootings, and less dead children, which means fewer traumatized families. And instead, we'd have more empathy, more selflessness, more giving, more compassion, more understanding. We would all become better listeners to both others, but also the better angels within ourselves. Fair to say there'd be more money for education because there's less selfishness, which means less people feel a need to hoard money, protect it, and fearful of it. So there'd be more money available because there'd probably be more given to charities and less spent on war because, as I said, there'd be less war. There'd be less hunger across the world. We'd have far closer to world peace because diplomacy wouldn't just be seen as an option, but a necessity. Pride is a lot less involved. You have to remember that. And I dare say that the vibration of love would emanate more strongly across the globe. What a different world it would be. In many ways, we're headed in that direction anyway. Women are in far more positions of power and far more respected, deservedly so, than they have been previously. They're finding themselves in far more legislative positions, far better positions in terms of being able to teach and share information, being able to influence. The number one artist on the planet, maybe a few of the number one artists on the planet happen to be women. But truth is, for all the things we men lack as of now, everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. And I'm not saying all women are perfect, but if you ever needed a reason to listen to women more, well, that list, there you go. And for anyone out there that doubts what I said, well, where the hell have you been for the last eternity? There's so much I could say when it comes to women. I could speak of, we're talking about that feminine energy. We're talking about that feminine spirit. We're talking about the influence they've had in our lives. Understand something. And honestly, let me just say this. I'm going to have to do another version of this for Mother's Day because I almost feel like I guess it's good to do this for Valentine's Day. This is like the romance girlfriend-wife angle. But when we're talking about women, they are so crucial in terms of, I would say, the backbone to society. Obviously, they are our mothers. They are our grandmothers. I don't know what the statistics are in terms of teachers, but they do a hell of a lot of teaching. I'm sure that they probably represent the majority of teachers in America. I'm really not certain on that, so don't hold me to that statement. But if it wasn't for a woman, well, you wouldn't be here. Because at the end of the day, for anyone who wants to hate on the statement, understand that it was a woman who decided to have you, and it's a woman's body. A woman gets pregnant with you, she has to decide to carry you to term. And then she has to decide not to give you up to someone else. She has to decide not to, well, look, you obviously know there's cases where your babies end up in dumpsters and stuff like that. I know it's dark, but let's just be real. All right? The overwhelming majority of women on this planet don't do that. So if you're alive, breathing and walking around today, that means there was a woman somewhere who loved you enough to see that you had a chance to be alive today. In terms of women, a woman that's had a key influence in my life would be obviously my mother, who was a spectacular person. A couple of the key people who've influenced me, my mom, my dad, as is the case with many. But so much that I'm benefiting from today, so much of what I'm connecting to, and so much of what I've been tied to prior to this lifetime. Or, I mean, that's kind of tricky because speaking of the whole cosmic match twin flame concept, in terms of previous lives, I can't really speak to what I was conscious as in previous lives. I just know that my cosmic match / twin flame in this life is a woman. And obviously I'm the man, so, in this life for sure. In this life for sure, and I'm sure many lives before, a woman's been influencing me. But right now, a key woman having an influence is someone that existed with me, was a part of me prior to existing in this lifetime on Earth. Now that's I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but if you understand the concept of twin flames, but first you have to have an open enough mind to not think it's complete diluted bullshit. It isn't. Trust me, I wouldn't be spouting it off if I didn't have very, 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 very good reasons to do so. But the key woman that's been having an effect on an unconscious level since I've been born, or that key energy, it's been a feminine energy that's been there since the beginning. Because obviously this world's made up of two polarities. You got the feminine energy, you got the masculine energy. We need both. But man, imagine getting rid of that feminine energy. Imagine that wasn't a thing. Imagine what that would be like. I mean, what is it that gets a person, not to launch the nukes? Not to pull the trigger. To take a little more time to think before they're about to do something incredibly violent, incredibly rash. And don't get me wrong, this is not about saying women are perfect, but god damn, do they have a loving, necessary influence. I'm going to jump back to the topic though, in terms of my mother and her influence and that feminine energy type of influence being so key and really paying dividends right now. You have to understand that I've become, I would say, I'm far, well, not far more on it. I literally am more spiritual, far more than I was a few years previous, and I got into spirituality and this type of work at 20, in my late 20s. So over 7 years, it's been over. It was like 7.5, 8 years, over 7 years ago. But I've been into spirituality since my late 20s, and in the last few years, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I've taken it far more seriously. And to really go deep into this work, to actually become more of a spiritual person, you have to be able to integrate more of that feminine energy over time. That's just a requisite, period. So a lot of what's paying dividends today has to do with me being able to do such a thing over the last few years, becoming more spiritual with my consciousness work, my spiritual work, my meditative yoga. See, in this work I've become so much calmer, so much more peaceful. At least this is how I would feel. I mean, you might talk to someone I know and they'll be like, what are you talking about? That dude is the most violent, aggressive, abusive human being I've ever known in my entire life. But that's never going to ever happen, because that just isn't the case. I am so at ease right now. Like, I'm good, man. I'm good. I feel like I am able to listen more. I want to listen more. I want to listen even more than I do listen now, and I really do. I know I do. I didn't forget who I was. I am even more accepting of people. I can even more listen to viewpoints that are far different from my own, and be appreciative of them, even if I do disagree with them. I'm not quick to rush to judgment in the same way. I'm more about getting along. I've never been a violent person to begin with, or aggressive or anything like that, so getting along wasn't really that hard to do. But understand that these are qualities that are representative to a very large degree of feminine energy. You know, men who shit on women for this reason or that reason, exploit them, belittle them, just cheat endlessly on them. Look, when it comes to the whole cheating thing, I get it. It's not easy, so I can't really. It's not easy. It's not easy in terms of that. That's not an easy thing. But I'm speaking more to when something like that is done with like almost a recklessness, a carelessness, and almost as if you have a right to do that. If you have a good woman, realize who you're doing it to. I mean, all men, you wouldn't be doing shit in this world if you weren't in some way influenced by a woman, or at least that type of energy to do so. Because even if you're not trying to get into a relationship, or maybe you're like a monk, or you intend to be a monk type of person, I guess that's me to a certain extent. Or, you know, you plan to go off into a cave somewhere. That energy you're getting in touch with, that loving energy, well, that's a feminine energy. So you are never going to escape the influence of the feminine, even if you want to shit on women or disrespect them or not acknowledge them or maintain the status quo, which is at least what once was the status quo, just men ruling the world. I mean, I guess that is still the case in many, many ways today. But we'll have a woman president soon, I'm sure. And we do see things changing. Women, see men, it's funny. Us men, it's like when it comes to being masculine and when it comes to holding shit down and keeping it real and all of that, and not allowing yourself to get punked by another dude, or even this concept of toxic masculinity. Think of, Andrew Tate, that's an example. Understand that it's funny with all this having to be ultra masculine and macho. That's the way to be a real man and all that, right? And it's funny because there's no one who could fuck your life up more, cause more psychological damage to you, maybe even physical damage, than a woman. I'm just being real. Now don't get it to you. People get it twisted to be like, oh, so you're saying put up our defenses against women, like all of it just against women. Well, you guys kind of do that anyway. You guys, I mean. Not all men do that, but there's a large portion, who they feel a way about women because they maybe didn't get the attention they wanted to get from women, can't talk to women as they want to talk to them, don't have the confidence around women that they want to have. But when I speak of women in terms of their ability to completely and utterly wreck a man, I mean, this is true. Because a woman can get deep into your psyche. A woman can get into your heart. A woman can get into your soul. If you're a twin flame, a woman can literally be a part of your soul. I'm, of course, speaking from the male perspective. She could literally be one half of your soul. So I want you to think about that. I mean, we want to think we're so powerful and badass because we got the physical advantage. Like, motherfucker, women are really running this shit now in many ways. And it'll be this reality. It'll only be a certain amount of time before you see this full display in this physical world on center stage. I'm talking about woman president of the United States and more female leaders around the world. But understand, they think of Hillary Clinton's influence on Bill Clinton, despite all the issues with them. Think of Michelle Obama's influence on Barack Obama. Now we're talking about the positive side here. This is the positive side. Going on the positive side. All right? But, here's an example. This is kind of, this is without talking about a woman who's actively out to get you or get even with you. But a woman's influence, well, think of what happened to Kanye when his mom died. When his mom died. You see, he just completely and utterly lost his shit. I mean, he lost his shit. But, I mean, who am I to talk, right? My whole intent, especially, really in this last 3.5 years, and maybe unconsciously before then, has been to lose my own mind. Of course, I mean that differently. I mean, I would say it's purely metaphorical, but it's not. My literal intent was to lose my mind, to not be caught up in the same the typical traditional familiar things, often physical things that the mind tends to be caught up with, the physicality of the mind. Essentially, my intent has been in the last few years to lose that physical connection with my mind, to connect to infinite mind. But that's a side point I'm making. Touching briefly back on the whole Kanye thing, though. Understand what would be helpful to a person like Kanye is people will say a good woman. I agree. A good woman. Damn. The influence that would have. But he doesn't actually need to do that. If he became more of a spiritual person, committed more to a spiritual routine and connected more of that beautiful, divine, feminine energy, if he integrated more of it, that would calm him down. That would make him less egoic. He'd be more willing to listen. And he'd be less in need of defending himself. That feminine energy goes a long way. And it's strong, dude. You think I'm wrong on this? Okay, try having a baby without epidural. Or without an epidural. Not certain I have that phrasing right there. But there's women who do that all the time, that do the natural pregnancies. That's some badass shit right there. I have a couple of daughters. Both are young. Neither of them are teenagers yet. Thank God! Oh, because I mean, I know I said I'm more of a spiritual person and all that, but I'm not too connected to this whole identity thing, so I'm still gonna go ahead and get shotgun, maybe couple bows and arrows, maybe armor my home, and get it ready for when my daughters become teenagers, so you know they don't get fucked up with a fucked up kind of masculine energy. Because that's the thing about it. Obviously, I'm joking. No, I mean, I would assume the way they are in terms of their own feminine energy and what they'll attract in terms of masculine energy, assuming that they both end up with, men in the future. I mean, they could end up with women too. I understand that, but I think a woman who emanates a strong feminine energy will attract a strong masculine energy. I know it seems like, well, I guess that's not contradictory. I understand like attracts like, but if you're a woman who wants to attract a man, then I do think confidence in yourself and being your best self, your truest self, which is going to be best representative of the fully accepting of the woman you are and expressing that in the way that's most true to you. That doesn't mean you have to be super ultra feminine, or you can be whatever. You have women who are more masculine, women who are more feminine, all that. But what I'm pointing out is women who are just like men who know how to properly emanate that masculine energy will attract a woman who emanates a strong feminine energy, vice versa. But yeah, that's kind of rambling a little bit there. But yeah, having daughters has made me even more appreciative of just women as a whole, and the need to love our women, our girls, our daughters, protect them. Not because they can't protect themselves, but no, because they deserve it, because they protected us. Everyone who exists was protected by a woman at some point. So we protect them. That's fair, right? That's fair. That's fair. Remember the list. Just think about that. Really think about it. Women rule the world. We have less line. Because women don't lie as much as men. They're more about communication and truth. There'd be less deceit. Women want to be loyal. Women tend to be loyal. Women tend to want to stick by their man. Less manipulation. Women can manipulate, I know. Men manipulate. But in terms of feminine energy, I think one of the qualities of that is being less manipulative as a person. And come on, less vindictiveness, which is less of a need for vengeance. I mean, just look at the movies we have out. I mean, do you think movies like John Wick exist if it's a world ruled by women? Don't get it twisted. I mean, John Wick is dope as fuck. I'm sorry. I love John Wick. I am not yet of a level of spiritual evolution where certain violent movies or shows I'm not watching. Oh no, some of that stuff I'm still watching. A lot of stuff I won't take part in, and I find it less appealing. But there's still some of that in me. But just think about it. I mean, well, what's so wrong with there being less abandoned children? Because we're more loving and more willing to accept responsibility for our kids. Obviously, we're talking about men who step out, don't handle their responsibilities as fathers. And don't get it twisted. I'm not perfect at all. But I'm very much in my daughter's lives. That's how I intend it to stay. Couldn't imagine a world that would be worth living in without a woman in it. For all the pain that men may have been caused by women, which at the root is really something you're manifesting within yourself. I mean, you're creating and it's manifesting out in the external world because it's created internally. But for all the men that have in this physical world been hurt by women in one way or another, either because they had their heart broken or because they can't really get women in the first place, understand that means you have to step up. I mean, be worthy for a woman. Be worthy. Make yourself a valuable person, a valuable man, because the good women out there, which I would say are most women, they deserve a good quality man. Not a man that's just about having a trophy wife, not a man that's just about having sex, not a man that's too insecure to be by himself, not a man who is unwilling to take care of a kid if he has a kid, not a man who thinks he owns a woman because he has money. They deserve genuine love. They deserve a man that's loyal. It may seem crazy and untrue, but this is not true. If you grow yourself, if you grow your consciousness, you can make it much easier to be loyal to a woman, to not cheat. That seemed absurd to me before, and look, I could just tell certain changes that have happened within. There's far more self-control on my part in terms of just my perception of women, how they affect my body. Like, I don't feel like a wild dog anymore that needs to jump on every woman I find attractive when I'm out and about. But that's due to consciousness work. And trust me, that's due to hours and hours, count thousands and thousands of hours of consciousness work. Not to intimidate you, but yeah. But just think about it. If you're a dope ass dude, guess what? You're gonna get a dope ass woman. Because if you're not a dope ass dude, guess what? You're not gonna get a dope ass woman anyway. And you can go ahead and do everything on the external. I'm talking about get the car, get the clothes, get the money. Put on this great presentation. You just same as a woman who puts on makeup but has nothing going on the inside. Men who do all that stuff, Look at my money, all the clothes I got. Look, I'm balling. I get any woman now, treat any woman how I want. Dude, you're no different from women who ain't worth shit, who just put on some quality makeup and went out, to sit at the bar and hope some dude hits on her. You're no different from a woman who uses a bunch of filters on social media to make herself look 5, 6, 7, 8 years younger than she normally does, but like the other woman, has nothing going on the inside, isn't developed, has no wisdom, is actually selfish, has no qualities that would be considered motherly despite being a woman, because trust me, there are some bad women out there too, but you're only going to attract those bad women or those shitty women if you're a shitty dude. So for the dudes who've had bad experiences with women, I mean, this is in truth quite often. I mean, for dudes who have had bad experiences with women and are all disgruntled and effed up about it, then there's probably something wrong with you. It's one thing if you're just a dude who's had bad experiences with women, but you ain't tripping on it. Every dude's had bad experiences with women. Like, you get shut down, bad relationships, whatever the case is. But if you just blame women in general, yo, there's something wrong with you, dude. Like, yo, just saying, man. Get your head out your ass. Be more secure in yourself, because, I mean, you might as well be. And it's so much easier, too. It'll be so much easier if you really just work on yourself, get yourself to a point where you're good with yourself. Because if you do that first, you're far more patient and you're less stressed out about being alone and not being with a woman to build you up and make you feel like you matter. I mean, that weight would be, well, if it's never going to happen, it'd be excruciating. But if you are secure in yourself, then the weight to have that woman attract to you, to be able to attract that woman to you, that's going to be nothing. You know, it's going to happen in a nice, harmonious fashion. And just understand, you get what you deserve. And a woman, a good woman, I'll be real with you, that would be, in terms of in this external world, because at the end of the day, everything that's really valuable, the most valuable shit is inside. So remember that. But in terms of the external world, the best prize, the number one prize, is a good woman. And for a woman, I would say kids and a good man. I'm not sure. I can't necessarily speak on behalf of women in all ways. I don't think, well, let me rephrase that. I would say that in terms of in the physical world, for most men, the number one prize would be a good woman, a good a good family. In this physical world, as far as the physical rewards, I'm talking physically, not as a whole. Don't get it twisted. And for women, a quality man, kids, quality family. But with that said, you can't get none of that shit for real. Like for real, unless there's not quality, unless there's quality on the inside. You develop yourself on the inside, and what you end up with is, well, you end up with the greatest reward, the greatest prize, the thing that is better than anything you can get in the physical world, including a man or a woman or kids. You get that connection to God, and from that connection, that God energy, that love energy, you attract that same energy to you in the physical world, in the form of a woman, in the form of a man. So, as this podcast comes close to an end, let me just say a couple more things, and then I'm going to finally talk about my 14th retreat. Not long. It's just I've been saying I was going to talk about that forever, and I have not as of yet, so I'll speak on that. But to all the women out there, you are all beautiful. You are all loved, even if you don't know you're loved. You all have been perfect since birth. You are no less perfect now. Any perception of imperfection is purely a projection of your own mind. It does not exist. In actuality, you are perfect. And you are necessary. You are so much more than just necessary. Beyonce has that song, "Who Runs the World? Girls." Right? I guess as a beer would be like, "Nah, man. Nah." I mean, that's just, it's just a song. Yo, man. Yo. We may not have a female president right now in the United States, but guess what? Look around and notice all the ways things are getting better. Notice how things have gotten better over time. And this goes for men and women. Really think about when you felt most loving and most at peace. What that energy is representative of. Think about that through your whole life. Think about what you're looking into, what you're looking toward in the future. Like if you're a dude, your future, your deepest hope in the future isn't just driving some car. It's a certain feeling. I want you to think about the future feelings, both the women and men, because there's women out there who may not agree with what I'm saying, despite it being obviously extremely favorable towards women. But just ponder those ideas, that idea of what energy you're looking forward to experiencing in the future, and what energy has been really at the root of the greatest changes in world history. The energy representative of what causes carnage and things such as war and thievery and pillaging and murder and rape and lying and disrespect. And the willingness to hurt another person. What energy is counter to that? And then tell me women don't rule the motherfucking world. I'm done. Now, 14th retreat, last note. Okay. So I took my 14th retreat, I guess roughly a month ago, a little less than a month ago. It had been like 6-7 months since I'd gone on a retreat. It had been too long. So on that retreat, I did 8 hours of solid consciousness work. I was in the motel itself for 20 hours. There's much of the time it's more than 20 hours, but it was just the situation. I make it a case if it's going to be a one-day retreat, I at least need to have 20 hours in the motel, because the way most motels work is if you're doing one day, you're not going to actually get a full 24 hours in there. And often I've had retreats that are more than 8 hours, but we're talking about a variety of consciousness work, and it's taxing and then between time and all that. But 8 hours of solid work, and not just your basic meditation, a lot of breath work that I did, meditative yoga. That was a big part of that retreat. It was a very, very, very effective retreat. I did it in a motel where it was cold outside and the air conditioning, the heat wasn't properly working, but I dealt with that because like I needed to do another retreat. But moving into the future, as I get to my 15th retreat and my 16th retreat, I'm going to start adding days. I've only done one retreat that's been more than a day. up to this point. So I'm going to do more of that. One thing for sure I could tell you about retreats is it's quite important that retreats got to be solo. I mean, not always. I mean, maybe there's a way to do a retreat that's not solo, but if you're depending on that, if you're even planning to do something like that half the time, you're screwed. Like, you need to, if you're going to do retreats, the overwhelming majority of the time, I'm talking about, I've never done a retreat that hasn't been a solo retreat. Any retreat that's not going to be a solo retreat, I'm talking about whether it's going to go be where other people are or bring someone with me. The only person I would ever bring with me on a solo retreat would have to be a woman I'm with at the time. Well, okay, let's be real. It's only going to be one woman I'd ever bring with me on a retreat, and she is not yet in my physical world, so I'm not going to get too much in detail on that. But I'll bring up this subject again later in a future video. Maybe around the time I introduce her to y'all, but that's a different subject altogether. Anyway, so as far as the 14th retreat went, I did it back in January, which was somewhat representative. It was like roughly 3 years since I had taken my first ever solo retreat. So it did hold some significance for me. And I tell you, it's just one of the rules I have is I don't count anything as a retreat that does not have me located in a place where I'm not spending time in a place that's different from where I live. Like, I won't do a retreat in my home, even though I know something like that's possible if I'm living alone, which I am now. But I do retreats. I do retreats in a place separate from what's where I live, because I want to be in an area that I want it to feel like a retreat. If I do a retreat at home, it will feel like I'm at home, and I think that'll affect the quality of the retreat itself. When I'm at a retreat too, look, I'll talk to myself, all that stuff. When you're at a solo retreat, talk to yourself. Have a conversation with yourself. It might be mentally, or it might be out loud, but have these conversations with yourself. It's a solo retreat. Who gives a fuck what anyone thinks? It's you with you. So, and for the women that do happen to listen to this, whether it's now or whether you happen on this podcast years from now, I apologize for the curse words. Actually, as a whole, I don't curse that much. I remember there was a point where I was going to be like, okay, I got to just make it a point to seem more spiritual and not curse as much. But then I kind of connected that idea to trying to have a spiritual identity, and that didn't seem genuine to me. I didn't want to turn spirituality, my spiritual journey, into an identity. So the best way to be true and to be spiritual is to, be true. My truth. If I want to curse. That'll fade out less and less with time. It's very easy. I could just easily not curse. I'm not one of these people who needs to curse. I could express myself infinitely in countless ways. I could replace every single curse word I've ever used with I could substitute it for countless other words. But that wouldn't be as much fucking fun now, would it? Anyway, so that was a brief note about the 14th retreat. It wasn't really worth the whole video because I'm going to be real with you. Solo retreats are solo retreats. To the outside observer, I mean, it's not really an interesting thing. All the interesting stuff is going on the inside. I mean, I could tell you what was happening internally. Well, you could get an idea of what happened internally on that retreat and all my retreats and all the consciousness work I've ever done based on what I talk about and how I talk about it, what I care about. Women, I love you. You're dope. You have caused me a hell of a lot of pain in my life. And you have caused me so much incredible, incredible, incredible joy. You brought so much joy to me. Words cannot possibly express how much all you women are truly, truly, truly appreciated. I appreciate you. I love you. Happy Valentine's Day. To my cosmic match / twin flame. I know you'll be laughing at this one day. Happy Valentine's Day, whatever you're doing right now. And with that said, you am I out.